We turn the key highlights in our Gemini notebook to a physical gift for our customer using a 3D printer. And we will go over that process in this video. To start the process, we are going to go into a notebook where we have our information or standard operating procedures. Now, this is an existing notebook. If you didn't have a notebook with these sources, you can put those sources together by using the Gemini app. And what you would do is you would open up the Gemini app and you would dictate into the Gemini app by using Gemini Live, and you can click on the live bar, and you would then dictate to Gemini exactly what you know your business philosophy to be. Gemini, I'm about to dictate to you the key core philosophies of our business. I'd like for you to transcribe it and to keep it inside of Gemini. So if you understand this, please acknowledge. Now, we're not going to go through the process of doing the actual dictation here, but you can use the Gemini application to dictate the process and upload this information to your notebook. Assuming that we had this conversation and we had dictated, all we would need to do is to go to these ellipses. We can then add this to a specific notebook, and we would obviously then choose the notebook where we're going to be executing our strategy. So you should now have a notebook with your core philosophy. So we're going to give Gemini a prompt. We're going to ask Gemini what kind of 3D gift that we can print in order to remind the customer of our principles. When I go into Gemini, I'm going to attach the NotebookLM notebook. And if you've never done that before, you're just going to go to this plus button. You're going to go to more uploads. You'll then go to notebooks. You'll then choose the notebook that you're going to be using. We're now going to paste in our prompt. Our prompt is now pasted in. Again, we want to make sure that we use the highest level prompt that we have available. We will then click enter. Gemini will give you a number of different alternatives. And one thing you can do is you can ask Gemini for an image, how it thinks your print will look. Now, eventually, Gemini does give us a model that we like. And so once we do this, Gemini already went through the process of creating the code that's going to be necessary for us to put into our 3D printer. It has extracted from the notebook the key principles inside of our notebook. We're going to go back and we're going to tell Gemini which principles we actually want. Gemini will then give you the code that you're going to need for OpenSCAD. We're then going to copy this code. Now, this is not a full-blown tutorial on 3D printing or OpenSCAD, and it does require downloading open source software. Now, this is something that you should not do if you think that this software is going to be harmful for your system. So make sure that you've done the proper research on this open source software and that it's actually going to be helpful and not harmful to your overall system. Barring all those things, we will download OpenSCAD and download it as a Windows program. We're going to open SCAD. We're going to paste in the code from Gemini. Once we have the code pasted in, we need to render the code to make sure it works properly and that we have copied it correctly. What we can then do is we can then click on the render button, or we can click on F6. It's better actually to click on render as opposed to using F6. And what you're going to do is you'll watch the process happen in your bottom right-hand corner. And if you have errors, you are going to need to start again by iterating with Gemini to determine what may be wrong with your code. And so the tube has now been generated here inside of OpenSCAD. What we can now do is we can save this as a document. Once this document rendered, what we actually did was we then exported this document to an STL file. And you'll see that here in this menu. We then move the STL file into the 3D printer software, and then we print. Now, one of the things you're going to notice here is that the letters look to be backwards. In this particular case, we printed this model as it was. Unfortunately, this meant that the final draft did not come out exactly the way we would like it to come out. And so what this meant is that we need to go back and we need to iterate then with Gemini to make sure that we have the right focus in place. So we went back to Gemini and with the original design. We let Gemini know that the original design was wrong, therefore our print was wrong. Gemini then offered a fix. We then applied the fix to our design. Our fix then rendered the letters correctly on our physical object. We can then export it to an STL file. We then imported the STL file into our 3D software. We then printed the new 3D object. The new object started the print process correctly, and so we watched it long enough to make sure it was working and then walked away. As you can see here, the printer is working to complete our 3D image. And so our 3D image did complete successfully and has the 10 keys inside of our business philosophy. So to recap, you can start with a NotebookLM notebook existing with your business philosophy, or you can record it and upload it. You can then attach that notebook to a conversation in Gemini and ask Gemini to give you suggestions of what kind of physical gift you can create for your customer. Gemini will then extract the information into a potential gift for you to be able to create using a 3D printer. You can then customize it to your taste. Gemini will then give you the code. You can then place that code inside of free open source software once you have verified it's going to be safe for your system. You can export that document direct to your 3D printing software. In this case, we're looking at Bambu Labs software. It's important to note that it does not take extensive knowledge of 3D printing. What it does take is the ability to take any screenshot that you run into and to paste it into Gemini and to ask Gemini what you should do at each step. So there's no reason to guess at instructions. There's no reason to guess at what you're seeing on your screen. You can simply give Gemini the screenshot of what you're looking at, and you can ask Gemini for each step in the process to execute what you are trying to do. It's important to keep as much as you can inside of one Gemini conversation, even though what you're leveraging is the information inside of Gemini Notebook. Once you attach the notebook, Gemini does know that you're referring to the information, so you're only going to have to do that once. So once you get the information into your Gemini notebook, you can use it as a conversation piece and as a reference inside the Gemini conversation in order to leverage it to create physical products. Throughout this tutorial, we referred to this as a gift. And obviously, anything that you produce that is physical, you can sell it if you know that there is a market for it. That does put you in a different kind of business when you talk about manufacturing a product. So we are going to be specific in calling this a gift or a giveaway. Another important point is that we use an extremely entry-level 3D printer in order to execute this. So if you're looking at following this demo, you don't need an extensive 3D setup in order to do it. We're using an entry-level Bambu Labs A1 printer, and there are plenty of options as well as printing companies available. Find the one that is most suitable to you. Okay, so thanks, and I will see you in another video.